Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, the final installment in our No Way Out series right here on the show. We've talked about No Way Out from 1998 to 2009 after taking a couple years hiatus. The pay-per-view was brought back in 2012 for a one-and-only show in June of that same year of 2012. So today we're talking about the show. Back then, after watching it back wasn't all that fun either, but it did have its moments. There were a handful of really good matches, just overall compared to some of the other pay-per-views we got that year. I don't know if I would call it my least favorite pay-per-view of 2012. I think it was at that time, but thinking back on it now and after watching back Elimination Chamber 2012, which I'll talk about in a future review, that was probably my least favorite show of that year. This one is not one among my favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a mixed bag, to say the least, and we'll get down to it right now. So kicking off the show for the World Heavyweight Championship, I believe the first time ever. That's a lie. I think WrestleMania 28 might have marked the first time. Or no, WrestleMania 27, when the World Heavyweight Championship kicked off the show for the first time. So anyway, kicking off No Way Out 2012 for the World Heavyweight Championship, Sheamus versus Dolph Ziggler. So the whole story with this match was that the original match was supposed to be Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight title, but Del Rio got concussed on an episode of SmackDown in a match with Khali. Go figure, right before the pay-per-view. So they switched them out with Ziggler. And I think Del Rio was back on Raw, like he was back in action like the next fucking night. So what was the point? Maybe they wanted to take extra precautions or whatever, which is understandable. But I'm actually kind of glad that it was postponed until the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And Del Rio and Sheamus, like I've talked about time and time again, they had good matches. The feud was just so fucking boring. As Del Rio by that point felt damaged, and Sheamus really had no character evolution other than I like to fight and telling ancestor stories and whatever, like family stories about his ancestors, and that's basically all the depth of the Sheamus character at that point in time. But he was still a great wrestler and went in there with a guy that had that same motivation that he had. Del Rio, again, they had good matches, but none of their matches made me jump out of my seat. This match did. And going in, I thought there wasn't a chance in hell of Ziggler winning the World Heavyweight Championship. He ultimately didn't. I didn't think he really would. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he had an amazing showing in this matchup. And remember, this was only 1 month shy of his Money in the Bank win. So maybe a great showing on this show kind of, turned some heads of officials. Because remember, like a month or two prior, Ziggler was losing on pay-per-view in unadvertised matches to Brodus Clay. At Over the Limit, he lost to Air Boom when he tagged with Swagger. He was all over the place for the spring of 2012. And it wasn't until this match that he was finally taken seriously again as a World Heavyweight Championship contender, as a real threat to the title. And again, he had really no shot in hell of winning the belt, but he had a great showing in defeat, a really exciting match. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of having pay-per-views kick off with the World Heavyweight Championship. It doesn't matter by this point because the title's been retired, and shockingly, because the title didn't mean anything towards the end of its run, but having it open shows, like when it was at one point considered to be the top prize in WWE, at some points over the WWE Championship, it was kind of silly to have it kick off the show. Maybe, I could see on a night where, Elimination Chamber 2011, I think, also kicked off with the World Heavyweight Championship match. Or no, it didn't. That was something else. So maybe 27 was the first pay-per-view to open with a World Heavyweight title match, but on a match with 10 matches, on a show with 10 matches, or 9 matches rather, excluding the pre-show, it was a little silly to have this match get kicked off. It was a great opener, but for the World Heavyweight Championship, and especially as one of the night's better matches, it deserved to go on later. I'm just saying that right now. So after that, a tuxedo match between Santino Marella and Ricardo Rodriguez. This was every bit as bad as you would expect. I mean, there was some comedy in there, but I didn't give two shits about this. The U.S. Championship was not on the line. Why Santino was U.S. Champion for as long as he was to begin with was beyond me. He was champion for almost 5 months, I want to say, which is 5 months too long. He got a nice little token run out of it in the spring of 2012, but by June, it was like, why the fuck is this guy United States Champion? Because he was involved in stupid feuds with Ricardo and all these other joke characters that made no sense. To why he was champion, I have zero idea. But the match sucked, your typical tuxedo match, and it would have been better placed on the pre-show, if anything else. So after that, another really good match in the show for the Intercontinental Championship, Christian defending against Cody Rhodes in a rematch from the Over the Limit pay-per-view where Christian returned and won the title from Cody Rhodes later on that night. This match I thought was even better. The feud I thought got better going into No Way Out. It was kind of non-existent. They didn't really further it all too well, and both guys were also kind of featured in the World Heavyweight Championship picture for a time that spring, so they really weren't focused on feuding with each other. But still, I thought the matches they had were really, really good. They had this match, the one over the limit, which was kind of rushed. Christian came back as a babyface that same night and won the belt, so it was a little bit rushed. They probably should have saved it for this show. And then they had another match on Super SmackDown Live, I believe, on the day before the 4th of July. And I thought this one was, I'd have to watch them all back, but I thought this was the best of the bunch, to my memory. A lot of really good back and forth action. The crowd was into it for the most part. The final finishing sequence I thought was really, really fun too. Christian in the end, I believe, hitting a spear to retain the title. So a great match from those two, and a rare time in 2012 that the IC title actually felt like it meant something. Because when Cody Rhodes had it, it was a great reign, but he didn't really do much with it after the feud with Booker T, and then the stuff with Big Show was fucking horrible. And then he dropped it, Christian dropped it to Miz, and he didn't do much with it. Neither did, who else did he lose it to? Cody Rhodes, or rather Kofi Kingston and Wade Barrett. The title was pretty much down the tubes from that point forward, but Christian had a nice little reign for as long as it lasted. After that, a fatal 4-way tag team match to determine the number one contenders to the WWE Tag Team titles. So the teams included the Primetime Players, the Usos, Tyson Kidd and Justin Gabriel, and Primo and Epico. So none of these four teams, it was an unadvertised match. None of them meant anything. They were pretty much relegated to superstars every single week, so the crowd didn't give a shit at all. But they still put forth a really, really good effort. The crowd got into it, towards the end once they started to realize how good the action was and how good the wrestling was. But you have four very talented teams, and they really all worked well together. And in the end, it was the Primetime Players who came out on top as the new number one contenders to the titles, and this was where AW, Abraham Washington, who was once known as Abraham Washington in ECW, now known as AW, joined the Primetime Players after betraying Primo and Epico, and that was also short-lived before he got fired in August because of the whole Kobe Bryant joke that he made. You can, I'm not going to talk about it here, but not because it's inappropriate, but it's a long story. You could look it up for yourself. But the match was really, really fun. I like the idea of the players becoming real threats to the tag team titles. They were a good team even today when they are teaming. I know it's not very often, and now with Titus only out, it's not really happening at all right now. But they were a good team even back then, and they deserved a shot in the spotlight for the WWE Tag Team titles, and they had a great showing here, and a well-deserved win for the Primetime Players. After that, for the Divas Championship, Layla defending against Beth Phoenix. And a decent match. It was better than it was at Over the Limit, where the crowd didn't give a shit at all. The crowd didn't care here either. There was some, fun and games with Layla, but that was about it. And again, I just didn't care, because the Divas division at that point felt like it was almost non-existent. These two were not feuding at all on TV. They just threw them on the pay-per-view to say they could have a women's match in the show. There was no Divas title match and Money in the Bank. It was a random-ass 6-woman tag team match. They weren't even featured at SummerSlam. And it wasn't until Eve won the belt at Night of Champions the division was finally taken seriously again. I liked Layla. I really liked Beth. And the two had a decent match, but no one really fucking cared because there was no feud. They weren't even on TV. So it was kind of a waste of a match. After that, Sin Cara having a match with Hunico. Sin Cara had just come back from injury, so he was kind of facing off against some losers to build momentum. The match was underwhelming. You would think it would have been better considering, the two Latino stars, but it really wasn't. It was just kind of there, and the crowd just kind of sat on their hands. Sin Cara won. For the WWE Championship, CM Punk defending against Daniel Bryan and Kane in a triple threat match. And a great match. The third really, really good, the second great match tonight. I thought the IC title match was really good too. But I thought this match was probably the match of the night, in my opinion. Not just because, Sheamus and Ziggler had, the great in-ring action, and so did this match. But the biggest difference for me was that Sheamus and Ziggler, not their fault, but it had zero build-up. Ziggler had just become the number one contender on the Raw before the pay-per-view. So they were thrown out there just expecting to have a good match and no real story told. With this match, the in-ring action was really, really good from CM Punk, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. But what made it most intriguing to me was the feud going on between all three guys at this time, not only over the WWE Championship, but specifically AJ Lee, who was doing the whole crazy chick thing, and she was flirting with all three guys. Easily the best thing going at this point in time in WWE. There weren't really many things to get excited about because of the whole John Laurinaitis, Big Show, Cena dilemma that was total and retread shit. But I thought this whole angle was great, and these guys put forth a really, really good effort. The back and forth action was, nonstop. There never really felt like there was a dull moment. And in the end, CM Punk, after AJ Lee got bumped off the apron inadvertently, Punk took advantage with a GTS, I think, on Kane. to score the win and retain his WWE Championship. So a great match. I could have sworn that Daniel Bryan was coming out on top here, just to further the feud, so he could become WWE Champion and then have another match with Punk in the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which was the route they ended up going in. But I was really hoping that, Daniel Bryan would win here, and Punk would go on and have the longest reign in almost like 20 years or something, so it would work out well in the end. But a really, really good match. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and easily my favorite match of this entire show. So after that, Ryback taking on Dan Delaney, maybe the, long-lost brother of Colin Delaney. Who knows? They're both losers, so they have that in common. And Rob Grimes in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Ryback won easily. Quick squash, whatever. Main event, steel cage match. John Cena and The Big Show. Where have we heard that before? The stipulation this time around was where if Cena won, John Laurinaitis would be fired from his position, whereas if Cena lost, he would be fired from WWE. The match sucked. I mean, it really went a lot longer than it should have, at almost 20 minutes. It's John Cena and The Big Show. You could put a necklace on it, but it's still a piece of shit, or something like that. You know the phrase better than I do, but you know what I mean. You can add all these, fancy, awesome stipulations with a steel cage, and it was overbooked as fuck. Brodus Clay came out, Kofi Kingston came out, R-Truth, Zack Ryder, Santino, everyone that Big Show harassed in the weeks leading up to this show came out and tried to prevent him from winning, and then Vinnie Mac got involved, and so did Johnny Ace, and it was it was a massive train wreck. The match sucked. John Cena won. Laurinaitis fired. That was the only good thing to come out of this show, because otherwise I was really left with no hope, going forward. I mean, the product would start to pick up around Raw 1000 and beyond, I thought, right around that time. Actually, Money in the Bank was really good too. But this show, coming out of it, I'm thinking, what is the direction of WWE? The Divas division is non-existent. The Tag Team division really isn't getting that much focus at all. They did on this show a little bit, but not much. The IC title picture was getting better. The US title picture sucked. There really wasn't a US title picture at that time. The World Heavyweight Championship the World Heavyweight title picture was in a total state of disarray, and the WWE title picture was really the only good thing going. So maybe I would have had better thoughts. I would have had fonder memories of the show had the triple threat closed it out, but because Cena and Big Show closed it out in the main event, I had a sour taste in my mouth coming out of this event. But overall, it was better than I remembered, because on paper you had 3 really, really good matches. I mean, 3 out of 9 is not a good percentage, but it's worth watching for those 3 matches alone, specifically the triple threat. The World Heavyweight Championship match, very well wrestled, had no long-term implications, but still a great match from a wrestling standpoint. The IC title match was really, really good. Not much of a feud there or a story, but still a good match. And the WWE title match, I thought, was easily the best thing on the entire show. The undercard, there were just too many squash matches. It felt like an episode of Raw. The handicap match, Sin Cara and Hunico, Santino and Ricardo, was a fucking waste. No one cared about the women's match. The main event sucked. The tag team match, the Fatal 4-Way match was decent, but it was unadvertised. Way too many unadvertised matches. So that kind of dragged it down for me. But I wouldn't recommend you watch the whole show, but I would recommend that you go out of your way to watch those 3 matches I just mentioned. Specifically, if you only have a small window of time to watch anything, the triple threat for the WWE Championship. So it kind of sucks that this was the last No Way Out event that we got. It's not like 09 was that much better. I thought it was a really good show, or a good show overall. It wasn't an amazing event. But, towards the end, the No Way Out shows really started to bleed together. I thought, and I still say to this day, that the 2000, 2001, 02, and 03 shows were all amazing, and the subsequent ones were good at best. I thought 04 was good with Eddie's win, but everything else after that was all right. It was average, but nothing too amazingly noteworthy. But anyway, that was No Way Out 2012. But the biggest difference with this show was that it didn't take place, unlike all the other ones, all the other events, it didn't take place before WrestleMania. It took place in June. So a completely different feel to it than the other ones that you might watch on the WWE Network. But I'm glad it was scrapped, because this show was not good. It wasn't really that good. Had its moments, but overall, I'd probably put it middle of the road. I'd put my thumb right in the middle for this show, because I didn't really think it was that great overall, but it did have its moments. So that is my review of No Way Out 2012. As always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. All support is greatly appreciated. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And starting on Wednesday, my first official review of Elimination Chamber is coming up on the road to WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber 2010. My reviews of 2010 through 2015 are coming up in the next couple weeks. Right here in the month of March. I'm looking forward to it, and beyond that, I'll be talking about WrestleMania 31 on the 1-year anniversary on the Tuesday of the 29th of March. And then going into WrestleMania week and beyond, I'll be talking about the post-Raw WrestleMania shows from 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. Then after that, I forgot what we're reviewing, but we'll see. Only time will tell. But for now, anyway, thank you for watching and listening once again. Have a great rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.